Hey everybody, Gareth with FCP. Today we're taking through the steps on how to replace the rear brakes on a 2008 Mercedes C300, and more importantly, this is the boss's car, so we're going to make sure we do an extra good job. So let's get started. First and foremost, we have an anti-rattle clip. We'll go ahead and remove that. Flathead screwdriver is going to be your best friend. You have to remove these dust caps from the caliper. In this house is the sliding pin. If you've watched our front brake video, the rear caliper setup is a little different in this regard. Alright, using an 8mm Allen screw, we're going to go ahead and remove these sliding pins. And sometimes these can be hard to push through, so flathead screwdriver, I'm going to pop it right on through. Alright, we're going to use a universal adapter on this bottom, because for some reason Mercedes uses a plastic protectant panel for the lower control arm. Makes it a little hard to get at. And using our friend the flathead, we're going to go ahead and push this one out too. Next, just like on the front, you have a pad wear sensor in the rear here. I'm going to go ahead and snip it because we'll be replacing it anyway. And using an 8mm hex, I'm going to go ahead and remove the pad wear sensor housing off the caliper. You can also just simply disconnect the pad wear sensor, but I've also seen these things get stuck in there pretty good, and if you keep trying to pry it out in this position, you can sometimes break it off. So I honestly just prefer to cut it off. It's not that big of a deal. Next, we're going to remove the caliper from the caliper carrier. Simply press into you. That'll compress the piston a tad, and it'll simply slide right off. Bungee cords are useful, or thick metal gauge wire. Just find some place where you can actually hook the caliper. You don't want to stress the brake line or brake hose. It'll cause premature failure. So got a good place right there in the spring. Alright, using an 18mm box wrench, we're going to go ahead and remove the caliper carrier. I'm going to tap it with a hammer, get it started. We're going to remove the rotor securing screw, and that is with a T30 Torx. I'm going to put one of the lug bolts back on here because I'm going to have to hammer this rotor off. And quite honestly, last thing you want is a 20-pound rotor flying off at you. So if we had not had the lug on, this thing would have flown off. But now's a good time to actually inspect the parking brake assembly, make sure that all the springs are in good shape. Still some material on the brake shoes, so we're not going to worry about that today. So we use some brake parts cleaner here. Go ahead and clean this down. We're going to apply some anti-seize to this once we're done cleaning it up. Adds a little bit of a barrier in between the two. Alright, we're going to apply some of our friend anti-seize. We'll go ahead and put it on the entire hub, like so. Also, make sure you go thin with this coating. You don't want to like have gobs of it because that just makes a mess. Nice thin coating, that's what you're looking for. Any contact area where the caliper is going to be in touch, or the wheel is going to be in touch, and the rotor is going to be in touch. Alright, now that we've anti-seized the hub, I'm going to go ahead and put the new rotor on. We're using a Zimmermann Z-coated rotor. Basically it's coated with zinc, and this coating actually also helps reduce corrosion as well. So the areas where the brake pads do not come in contact won't rust. So like the hat here, and this area up here, and especially inside. Also, do not use any type of brake cleaner on the surface, as it will actually damage the zinc plating or zinc coating. Any type of treated rotor like this, just simply put them on and forget about them. And we're going to use our set screw to hold it in place. Alright, next we're going to clean off the caliper carrier. Use a little bit of brake parts cleaner. And you want to make sure that you get all of the nasty stuff off from inside the channels here, because this is actually where the brake pads will sit. And if there's any kind of buildup of stuff in here, it'll basically prevent them from moving freely, and you'll have uneven pad wear and all sorts of brake noise. So this is actually a pretty important step. Alright, next thing we're going to do is we're going to apply some brake lube, basically silicone, into the carrier. And this stuff will allow the brake pads to slide freely. And that's what you want. If they bind up, you'll basically hear brake squeal. It's the most common sign. Alright, we're going to go ahead and reinstall the bracket. Simply going to slide in to place. And I'm going to take one of the caliper bolts, or caliper bracket bolts, and I'm going to kind of wiggle it around while pushing on it to find its home. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is compress the caliper. Now you can use channel locks. We've done that in videos before, but quite honestly, channel locks can slip. You can damage the edges of the caliper, so a caliper compressor tool like this works best, in my opinion. It's actually easier. I'm going to make sure that the brake pad is still on the piston. I'm going to start tightening it down. As you can see, it's going to retract the caliper. And once it bottoms out, you'll feel it. Take the tension off, then remove the old brake pad. For replacement pads, we're using Akabono ceramics. This is the Euro formulation. What's nice with these pads is you essentially get all the benefits of a metallic pad without really any of the downsides, meaning these perform for the most part just as well as a semi-metallic pad. Very little brake fade at high operating temps. But more importantly, if you hate to clean your wheels all the time and you just simply daily drive your vehicle and you don't do any track use with it, I mean, these are the pad to go with anytime. Definitely very popular from us, and we highly recommend them for any street driven car. So we're gonna go ahead and put these on. Akabono actually also supplies new pad wear sensors, so you don't have to worry about picking those up. And they simply clip into place. You're going to line up the tabs. Has its own little channel it goes into, and all you're going to do is just push into place. And we're going to go ahead and install the brake pad onto the caliper. Make sure that the brake pad sensor, wear sensor, is on the outside in this little channel here. And you just basically push into place and it'll seat itself. The outer pad simply sits in place like so. And we're going to go ahead and place the caliper over. for the time being. Didn't mention you would need to clean the sliders before reinstalling them. There's actually a very easy way to do this. You just simply take your Allen screw, and if you have an electric screwdriver or impact, put it on, take some sandpaper, and it'll simply remove the corrosion like so. Compared to the original one, or one of the ones we just pulled off, looks brand new. You're going to want to put some lubrication on it, smear it all around. And once again, you're going to lubricate the sliding pins. This is absolutely necessary. There's no shortcut to this. You need to do this. Otherwise, the caliper will not be able to move freely on this pin. And just like the top one, we're going to put it in its home. Just basically have to line it up and feel for it. Once it starts to thread, or once you kind of feel its seat, that's how you know it's in its home. And we're gonna go ahead and tighten them down. I mean, really all you're looking for here is you're just looking to see that it bottoms out in the caliper carrier. And there it is. And using our universal extension at the bottom, we're going to go ahead and tighten this one down as well. And I'm just waiting for it to bottom out, just like that. Going to connect the new pad wear sensor into the housing, and we're going to take the securing bolt, thread it by hand a little bit. Most important, you're going to want to torque it to spec. Click, click, we're good. And the next thing you need to do is just simply secure the anti-rattle clip. Best way to do this is start at the bottom, and you're going to make sure that it's in like so, into the holes on the caliper, and simply push into place. So basically holding this part in, push that top piece on. Lastly, you're going to want to put these dust caps back on the back of the sliding housings, or slider housing. And as with any brake job, you're going to want to pump the brakes a few times before you take it for a test drive. That's just to ensure that the brake pads are pushed up against the surface of the rotor. The last thing you want is to not have any brakes when you come to the stop sign down at the corner of your street after doing a brake job. So definitely make sure you do that before you do anything else. Other than that, that's how you do the rear brakes on a 2008 C300 Mercedes. And as always, if you have any questions, please give us a call at 877-634-0063. Thank you for watching.